Hello everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a truly fascinating topic, the sexuality of ancient Rome, specifically the very visible expressions of homosexual relationships in their society. While many people might have a narrow view of ancient cultures as being strictly heterosexual, ancient Rome was far more complex and nuanced. So, let us unpack some of the reasons why we can say that homosexuality was a significant aspect of Roman life. It's a journey that challenges our modern assumptions and reveals a world that was both familiar and startlingly different from our own. First, let's get the cultural context right. The Romans had a completely different way of thinking about sexuality compared to us. For them, it wasn't so much about gender as it was about the roles of the dominant or active partner and the submissive or passive partner. This meant a Roman man could engage in homosexual acts, but his social status and the role he took were what truly mattered. Being the dominant partner was seen as a sign of power and masculinity. On the other hand, being the passive partner, especially for a freeborn citizen, could lead to a loss of status and be seen as unmanly. It is important to understand this wasn't really about sexual orientation in the way we think of it today. It was much more about social hierarchy, power dynamics, and control. Next, let's talk about where we see this in their culture, literature, and art. It's in the writings of famous poets and playwrights that we find both humorous and deeply moving reflections on same-sex love and desire. The works of poets like Catullus and Juvenal are filled with themes of homoeroticism that were surprisingly bold. One of Catullus's poems speaks directly about love and desire between men in an affectionate and sometimes funny tone. This shows just how intertwined these relationships were in the daily life of Romans. And it wasn't just in writing. Statues and frescoes often depicted male beauty with great admiration, celebrating the aesthetic appeal of the male form. This artistic focus really hints at a broader acceptance and appreciation of same-sex attraction within the culture. And what about the people themselves? Let's look at their public and private relationships. Historical accounts show that many Roman leaders, including famous emperors like Julius Caesar and Hadrian, were widely believed to have had relationships with other men. Hadrian, in particular, is famous for his deep romantic involvement with a young man named Antinous. When Antinous died tragically, a grief-stricken Hadrian had him deified, made into a god. Statues of Antinous were put up all across the empire. These relationships were often celebrated and memorialized, which is a stark contrast to how female relationships were viewed. While a woman's sexuality was tightly controlled and linked to family and marriage, men had much more freedom to explore their desires, including same-sex attractions, often without facing any significant backlash from society. Finally, religion and mythology also played a crucial role in shaping these attitudes. The Romans worshipped the pantheon of gods who themselves embodied all kinds of sexual relationships. Gods like Apollo, the god of music and arts, and Bacchus, the god of wine and ecstasy, were associated with beauty and unrestrained love. This allowed for the celebration of sensual experiences that went far beyond traditional heterosexual norms. What's more, certain rituals and festivals actually included same-sex relationships as part of the cultural fabric. The Lupercalia, for example, was a wild fertility festival where affectionate relationships between people of the same sex were not just tolerated, but in many cases, openly embraced as part of the celebration. So in conclusion, ancient Rome's relationship with homosexuality was incredibly complex and deeply woven into the fabric of its society. Rather than looking back at the Romans through a simple lens of condemnation or exclusion, we should try to recognize their diverse expressions of love and desire that don't fit neatly into our modern categories. By understanding ancient cultures in their own context, we enrich our appreciation for the vast spectrum of human relationships throughout history. Thanks so much for joining me today as we explored the captivating world of ancient Rome and its dynamic expressions of sexuality. If you found this interesting, be sure to like and subscribe for more dives into history.